Hello, my name is Michael Vico An, and for this tryout video, I will be focusing on the first 10 minutes of the game that was assigned to me. In this video, I'll be offering feedback to both TSM and GG on the way that the game was executed and provide alternate plays that would have potentially put both teams in a better spot than they were in. And before we even get started into the game, I would like to put some spotlight on Bjergsen's Rune selection that could have been potentially better. Arcane Comet potentially could have ensured a far more clear lane, prior lane in the earlier stages of the game. That could have prevented a couple of pickups. One being that lethal tempo, while there are two major health stackers in the enemy team that could be constantly whittled down using the Liandry's and Nashor's buff, is going to be rather tertiary in the fact that there is already a tank shredder in the team under Ashe, and the fact that Arcane Comet will ensure that you're going to get permanent push against the Echo in the laning phase. And furthermore, if the game is supposed to go in a stalemate matchup, then Demonte will be the one that has going to have a side lane lead. So as a result, lethal tempo will feel even more useless in those stages of the game. But with that out of the way, I would like to jump right into the game. And the first point that I would like to emphasize is at 120, when TSM expertly wards for the Jax that is going to be the win condition this game, mainly because there were 4 auto attackers that were selected, Mordekaiser being the 4th one to be picked on R4, and it being immediately responded by Jax and B4. As a response to it, not only is it a powerful counter matchup in the laning phase, but it permanently outscales Mordekaiser in the side lane as well. So the only way that this matchup goes awry is if Closer goes for a level 2 gank, whether it be after clearing 3 camps and then going up to the river and then going up this way, like this, or if he is even feeling far more cheesy and then trying to go for a level 2 shenanigan by trying to burn Jax's flash early, since Jax is not a champion that typically goes Q as a first ability of choice, then he could actually go this way, and both spots have practically been warded out, and this wall is definitely not an option because the Blast Plant does not spawn at this time and Dallas Balder does not have a mean to get across that wall. So this shows me that TSM is actively trying to play towards the Jax lane in the early game, since it is the most volatile one, given the fact that GG did not necessarily pick for an explosive lane, the bot lane, by picking R4 Karma, and they're trying to fight for the push more than anything. But the thing is, with Spica not requiring a leash because he is set, it is going to be a battle of whoever hits first to 2, and then going to be able to maintain the wave lead for the at least next 3 to 4 waves. And the Bard and Nash should not be afraid in contesting any of it, and should be able to prep for Dragon when the time comes, when it is close to spawning. The early game planning doesn't seem to really add up to the execution that was being shown, however, because with sets clear being very limited in a way where he is the one who needs to come up, get to level 3, hover for the top set in order to prevent any type of conflicts, and the path back down in order to maximize his clear. The amount of time that Spica is required to stay on the top side should be minimized for the player's welfare. However, that is not being done when Broken Blade is going for trades like this, because in the ideal sense, the best way that this lane could come out is when he goes for the cheater recall, where after getting this trade, then he will be focusing going back into the wave, and then last hitting all of them. And by the time that the 3rd wave crashes, and if he is able to fastly push, this will be the time that the set will be able to get level 3 after getting Grump, path over here, hover, and then make sure that Volibear is not pathing back up and going for any type of plays during the time that it crashes. And then during the time, he will be able to reset and then get the item that he needs, potentially Cole or even Thorn Split if he wants to make the matchup even more explosive in the earlier stages. And then what that will allow him to do is just have a safe side and also avoid any potential ganks that would happen if Closer is the one who finishes his camp, then pass back up like he is supposed to as well, similarly to Set, but onto the other side of the map, and then contest for the Scuttle Crab. Now, it seems to me that the primary goal of TSM, the way that Spica is playing, is that he is indeed going for the Scuttle Crab and then trying to path back down and then establish this one as well. Now, this is dependent upon the bot lane matchup, and this communication was most likely issued out that Spica will be able to get both Scuttle Crabs, and that would be of benefit to him. However, I think the potential risk that they put themselves into this by trying to go for this double Scuttle Crab play is far more dangerous than what it is worth. So he first has to hover in like immensely for this play to work. The fact that the wave has not been crashed in is quite worrisome. And during this time, he has a whole 15 seconds in which he either has to choose to take blue buff and then potentially contest Skull Crab with a rather curious wave position, because this is not necessarily granting prio just because Jax has not quite crashed the wave in. So if Volibear and Set are playing versus each other and Volibear is at his level 3 power spike, which he is very well known for, then Set will be the one that is a little bit more in the back foot, with the fact that mid lane prio still has not been established just from the way that the minimap is looking right now. And the way that this ultimately goes over is with Azir slowly getting pushed, then he is freely able to acquire the Scuttle Crab. But the problem ensues that the wave still has not been crashed in, so Jax is not able to avoid this gank by going into the river and then being together with Spica. So Broken Blade is now in a situation where he is now ganked. Of course, the wave situation would be bad enough already to the point that this gank would be threatening enough if he was still standing here. Because even if he tries to go down, then there's a chance that Jax tries to use immense amount of resources, and he does not have a hop to get away from it safely. So after this gank, the wave is in a rather strange situation where it is still slow pushing back towards him. And it is nice that he is able to get a flash out of it because of Spica's backup. But it still remains that even after end of all these plays, it is Closer that was able to effectively clear majority of his camps, put it on a reset timer, so that he's going to be able to reap them faster than the 2 camps that have been left behind on the side of Spica. And to add a cherry on top, he will be able to just clear this Crux in the reset and to fully have all 6 of his camps cleared up and have a better second clear, just the way that it stands. And what makes matters worse is that Spica actually has to stay even further to make sure that this wave crashes. Otherwise, Jax will be the one that is forced to burn TP and to return to this lane and fix it, while then the Spica's movements of hovering topside and Broken Blade also finding the correct trade opportunity to burn Mordekaiser Flash and his HP to force the TP would come to naught. So when that happens, then the most likely the play that could have been done for Spica when in this situation is, especially if he's going to play this aggressively and stay on the top side, is instead of going for the flash E trade on Mordekaiser, which would most likely not yield in any type of kill, which would be the thing that you need to look out for. Maybe that if the tower aggro was properly handled and Jax had a little bit more grit to work with, then this play would work. But most likely the one that is the guarantee play that he needs to do immediately is he needs to go in, and then since these range minions are getting low, then he will be able to clear all of them with his E. And if he's able to push these in, then this will create a temporary moment where the cannon is the only thing that is stopping them from actually preventing getting this minion wave to arrive here in time, but to create another soft freeze. So them together tandeming and then taking down this minion will give Jax enough time for it to crash, and then as a result give him a clear recall timer in which he could play towards. But instead, the play is made, and the wave is still hung, and the wave arrives in time, and Closer is still on the top side of the map to cover. And this results in a state where Speak is not able to clear back down, which could have been a potentially good play if he is actually, since the Grom just spawned recently. And also, Broken Blade now has to burn TP in order to make this play happen, and the direct play that could have been made is now gone on the bot side of the map, which we'll be able to see around 520 when the wave is now pushing back towards their side, and they conveniently have a flank ward that could have been used for a Jax TP. So now we need to imagine a situation where if the Jax was able to apply pressure here, because on the top side, as we can see, Jax still has the control over the wave. He has Doran's Blade in order to make the matchup even more favorable towards him, and also a Longsword versus a Cloth Armor, which is a byproduct of him having a relatively better buy because he was able to reset at a later time. With that in mind, then with the wave crash, then he is able to make a TP play on the bot side to create even far more pressure. Remember that even if the wave crashes back towards him, the way that the orientation of the wave looks, that even if he's able to effectively delete this, he's going to be forced to meet this minion wave somewhere around here. And then there is even a chance that if he doesn't clear quickly enough, then there's a second wave that is going to be crashing here. So he's going to have 2 waves worth of time to make this play. As a result, if he's able to create this play and then immediately recall it, he will not even be affected with losing any minions for it. So if Biofrost and Spica are using this portal to come over here, and then the Jax TPs immediately responded, then it will result in either of two things. One is if they were able to effectively play better around the Senna W and actively try to go for a flash early, then these two guys will immediately have to burn their summoners. Another factor is that if they were overlooking the fact that Jax had TP and were looking for counterplays like this because they had the Follow Bear hover, then it would come to another situation where potentially two of them will get wiped out, or even all three of them if they try to overextend a little bit, because it is worth noting that Hu He has very little mana to work with. As a result, he will not be able to provide the Mantra E escape that would otherwise be readily available. And the mana status of FBI doesn't seem to be in a good situation either, especially with him using his root very early. And this is a potential play that could have happened if Broken Blade had TP to work with. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Now, it's getting out of this series of events a little bit to the next series of events that I would like to talk about. It is the Dragon and then the Herald dance that happened early that could have been countered by Closure mainly because I believe that TSM was the one that played this more correctly, with one little niche that I will elaborate a little bit later. First is that Dovelift and Biofrost are able to establish lane control due to the fact that Ashe has a far better success at landing a lot of wave clear abilities, and also Bard also participating as well with his trade potential and the immense sustain that you're able to get from the infinite mana that you're able to acquire from Meeps plus the W shrines. So with that in mind, they're going to be able to get the crash and they try to go for the tower. And it's TSM intelligently enough pinks a Herald right here because they understand that the Closer could very well be taking it. And this is a very well reactionary play because Broken Blade is not extended past towards his side and he is letting the wave pull into him. He does not lose anything for this because even after Volibear indeed goes for the Herald and tries and Mordekaiser tries his best to constantly keep the wave shoved and have the big wave crashing into him, there's a very low chance that he indeed gets dove. And if he does, then Azir will be able to TP back towards the lane while Demonte is the one that is going to be behind. And Bjergsen's going to be able to shove the wave all the way in because of his first priority and then be able to hover to the top side in order to make sure that there is at least a man even on this in the case that Volibear tries to expand his ultimate to try to dive the Jax, which will be difficult enough already because a lot of the key abilities that are going to be coming out from Golden Guardians is auto attack space, which could be countered by Counter-Strike. But the way that it ends up being is that Closer tries to contest this and reveals himself. So all of a sudden, Herald play becomes a possibility because with Bard, they'll be able to easily escape out of this little pinch that GG is trying to plan. And nothing really comes to fruition. So with this, TSM's now next plan is to create this shove this back and give Bard a roam timer for him to go to the top side. But now, since the wave has been crashed in and the wave is now slow pushing back, Dovelift and Biofrost has to spend a significant amount of resources to create this play from happening. And after a while, they realize that the play is not possible, so they actually sack the wave early, despite the wave not being established and the crash not happening. Because look at the Biofrost's recall, and then the way that the TSM is tethering. Jax has now been deployed with a Cutlass, so he is going to be at a very powerful spike. Demonte has recently been chunked down. He is Mandaless, and he does not have TP to safely return back to lane, while Azir is in a far healthier state. So this is a call for Herald, especially if Bard is able to roam and then get the man advantage. And I would like to specifically showcase how GG could have potentially punished this, especially with the fact that the wave was not secured and there is a counterplay available. And the counterplay has been exemplified quite expertly by the likes of G2 Esports, which I would be showcasing now. This is the game 2 of Genji versus G2, where they are in a situation where Genji actually has the first tempo. First is that Jankos was killed due to unfortunate circumstances, and now they have the autonomy over the Rift-tailed, and they understand that life can be doing the play where they feint towards mid and then reconvene back towards the bot side after the Herald has been secured because Jankos is dead. However, the way that Mickey X is playing currently is quite intelligent because of two reasons. One is that he is blocking the major re-entry point for the support into the lane that they could reconverge and then secure that the ruler gets this wave. He is standing right here. Tompkins is a rather good duelist in an isolated matchup as able to hinder the champion from re-entering, which would be of a huge benefit. And Caps being able to shove this lane first because he is the first to the wave will also ensure that BDD will not be able to make any interesting plays without being punished and being matched by Caps. What this allows them to do is that since they're able to make sure that Leona has to take the longest way around, which will either be going all the way around like this, or straight up resetting and returning back to lane, these waves are now crashed in and Ruler is not even allowed to get into EXP range. Any attempt at trying to get into EXP range is immediately answered by Mickey just showing up and preventing that from happening. So they are maximizing the gold loss, and Perks ends up being significantly ahead in terms of CS by the end of this play. Something similar could happen done on this game being showcased here. With this large wave being stacked up, Huhi doesn't necessarily need to show up into the minion wave anymore. The pressure that he will be applying, especially it being Karma and providing no dive pressure that Thresh, Leona, or even Set on the other hand would offer, him being pressured and being in front of the tower doesn't accomplish much other than giving him an obvious angle to play around to prevent Karma poke. So, what's the play? Closer and Huhi should walk up, delete this ward, and they go into the red side. And then Closer should be the one that who's be taking these camps if there are any of them up. Conveniently enough, there's one that is up that will be of huge benefit to him. And if Bard is trying to make the movement that he is trying to do right now, where he secures Prio and then roams immediately back down to ensure that Doublet gets this far, the Biofrost will be locked out of this movement as Closer and Huhi are going to be going into the fog, ensuring that they are not seen because of the sweeper pop that you're going to see right here. Maybe perhaps he's going to be using it earlier to here to make sure that it's going to persist all the way over here, so this entire side is controlled over to them. Because the way that the wave is looking is that we know exactly where Azir would be hovering if he is hovering any lane, and it's going to be over here. He won't be hovering over here because we not only have vision of this side, there's an objective on this side, so there's very little utility of him focusing on that side. And then Biofrost will not be able to make re-entry and all these minions, notably that there is no cannon minion to soak up all the damage, so that all the moment that you're able to buy where Delvin's not able to farm this is of a great help. But since they did not prevent the Bard re-entry, he's safely able to return back to the lane. If Volibear now has a very difficult decision to make. He has to go for a dive that is going to be very difficult to do because they not only have two summoners ready, but also they're the one that actually has the set to roam in time, so it ends up being a good play for TSM instead. Because of the overextension by Closer, now he has to play reactively, and then now immediately with the set phase rush becomes an immediate kill. So this could have definitely been avoided, because if the Bard is the one that is prevented from making re-entry, then what will happen is that before Set actually recalls like this and prevents this from happening, then this entire wave would be the one that has to be forfeited. And that would be the end of my review, since that it is nearing the 10-minute marker, and I would like to sum it up by saying that there were multiple situations that could have happened. And for my personal case in the tryouts, while I am very much interested in the LCS spot, I'm also a little bit more interested in, quite frankly, on the academy and the amateur positions if there are any available, because I believe that my skill sets are more applicable to the side of younger players that are slightly less experienced. And thank you for watching, and I hope to hear back soon.